So as we said before, this is the game design panel. I'm CCP Arrow, game design director for EVE Online. And today we're going to talk to you about anything game design. Now here you can see the whole game design department. So there's a few of us here. First off, Fox 4. What's up? I'm CCP Arrow again.
Twice.
Wow.
I love you, Arrow.
CCP Fossey. CCP Rise.
No.
Oh, hold on. I screwed it up. Delegate 0. CCP Rise.
You are now allowed to cheer.
Our new lead game designer, CCP Scarpia. CCP Eterpium. Sonic Glover. And last but not least, CCP Grayscale. So this panel will be open to any discussion related to game design of EVE, but just to kind of give you some ideas of what we've been thinking about recently. Here are the design projects that have been either in production or are being thought of currently. So of course, we're thinking a lot about industry. We have a separate panel on Saturday for industry, however, so we're going to focus a lot more then on that. So if you can try to frame your discussion around everything else, then come to the panel on Saturday, then you're going to get a lot more for your money. Faction warfare, a lot of ship balancing. You can ask a lot of questions on that. We have our primary group here, all of them basically. Module balancing as well. Exploration, we've been doing changes to the scattering mechanic. A lot of improvements to new player experience. Star map, looking at some changes there. And camera and scanner improvements. So that's the highlights. Of course, if you have any specific questions about something else, that's fine, as long as it's game design related and related to EVE. So let's start the discussion. We have mics here on the sides, and just come up and bring us your questions, and we'll clarify if we can.
Really? Nothing? Come on.
Cool, I'm going home.
We're just that good. You don't have anything to ask about.
I noticed that you had the star map on that list before as something that you're currently working on. Is that correct?
Kind of.
Who made that list?
No.
Basically, we're right now making some small usability improvements to the star map. Some of you have probably seen some of the new tooltip stuff that's gone to CC and is starting to make its way to TQ. And kind of with that, we're doing some work on just usability related to hints and tooltips in general. And I'm sure many of you know a lot of the stuff in the star map is not particularly usable. There's a lot of overlapping and kind of weird clunkiness to it. And we're working on cleaning a lot of that up right now. So that's something we're actually working on. We have a dream to actually redo the star map, which you know, we're talking about here and there, but it's not something we're working on currently. It would be something that we would get to hopefully, you know, in the not super long future, but it's not something we're doing right this second.
Okay. Just one quick follow-up. Have you considered at least providing players the option to hide or show star systems themselves according to certain criteria?
I mean, we haven't talked about the rework at a detailed enough level to like have said that particular thing before, but that seems like the kind of thing that we would be definitely looking into. I mean, having more customizability and general usability is, of course, like would be the starting point for it. So I'm sure stuff like that would be on the table.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, just a quick question. I'm from Red Frog here. When are you ever going to show some love for freighters? Because you've just been nerfing them and making them slower throughout the whole universe. Right now, the only point when they're actually better is when you're doing your 50 AU warps, which is very rare.
Oh, what words to use? What words to use? Okay. This is going to be a bit of a letdown, I'm sorry, but only for a day. Wait until the keynote tomorrow. Let's say that. Wait until the keynote tomorrow.
Thank you.
I have a feeling that's going to
Don't
be the
miss
answer
out on
to
that
a lot
one.
of things.
Yeah, that'll be answered. That will be the answer to some things. There's going to be stuff that we are saving for the keynote. That's one of them.
Hi guys, question about faction battleship. Maybe on some high level you can describe what your plans for them, because after you balance the normal one, faction battleships suck actually.
That's fun. So on the forums, you can actually find a pretty detailed description of a rebalance that's going live this summer for all the faction ships. They include all the pirate faction ones. Yeah. Of course, we did the Navy ones right after the normal ones. And yeah, we're about to do the pirate faction one, so you can find some information there. Have you seen that at all? Or? Okay. So yeah, if anyone hasn't seen those, we're doing a full rebalance in all the pirate factions. We are leaving some more or less how they are. The Vindicator and the Macarial aren't getting huge changes. The other three are getting pretty significant changes. The Valgorn is getting a new bonus to energy vampires, which lets it use them regardless of its cap relative to its opponents. So that's a pretty huge boost for using NOS. And then the Rattlesnake's basically just getting a ton more damage, and its drones are getting a lot more resilient. And the, which one am I missing?
Nightmare.
And the Nightmare's getting an afterburner bonus. No, it got some small tweaks to make it a little bit better, and it's picking up the bonus the rest of the Sancho ships are getting in the rebalance to afterburners, but it didn't need quite as much help as the Phantasm and the Succubus did, so it'll be kind of in the same area that it was. And yeah, if you want more detail, definitely go check out the post.
Are there any plans about new faction battleships?
Someday.
Let's make a sign. Eve keynote.
Yeah, we always want to add more ships to the game.
Thanks, guys. All right.
That
really hard
line's
to see.
bigger, but we could alternate.
Yeah, it's hard to see these guys. Is there a way to only kind of bring up the lights on the sides so we don't like?
Yeah, it'd be good to see people over.
That's fine.
Yeah, get you kind of more.
Let's just switch back and forth until
There's
we run out of
people
people.
here?
Put up a collaborative feel here.
Yeah, go over here.
Oh, yeah.
You're able to mention. You're able to mention anything in particular that you plan to help with new players? Any of the changes for the new player experience?
Yeah, we're working by a new vision for the new player experience altogether, where if I pick like a single high-level goal is to bring the new players into, basically encourage them to be more autonomous as the avid Eve player. So basically raise them up to be the Eve player we want them to be. As opposed to telling them what to do, we want them to actually figure out what they want to do on their own, provide that information more contextually, and sort of reinforce their own actions and their own narrative in the game. We're doing this by building we have a series of features planned that are meant to sort of improve the overall user experience in the game, but we're focusing on the front end of that, focusing on the new player. And the first milestone of that is, we talked about that already, right? Blocks? Yes. Yeah, you just
Probably
mentioned
not, really. Yeah, okay. So first of all, I'd say I'm doing a whole presentation tomorrow on kind of where we're at with the new player experience. It's something where, like Scorpio is saying...
vision for it?
Yeah. That we're want to work on a lot right now. We're thinking about a lot right now. Basically, I have a whole team that's focused on new player experience. I'll talk some about those features tomorrow in the presentation rather than go into extreme detail now, but like Scarpio was saying, a big part of it is to just work on some of the foundational systems in EVE that are really important to communicating to new players. Those will give us more freedom to change the actual tutorials and new player experience. And that includes like the big thing which you're starting to see is a lot of improvements to tooltips and hints that just give a lot more information than there is now, so that we don't have to load all that information into tutorial text. And then there's some other stuff coming along as well. It's sort of in the same vein of improving sort of the base information and feedback from the game so that we have more freedom in how we communicate to new players.
And to the star map question earlier, which at least to me relates to this, is that it's just a big part of the game where we actually want to have a much better user experience, where the star map will be both very emergent and also provide all the utility we want. And we think it's one of the key factors that actually sets you in the universe when you start playing the game. It's the best communicator to like give you the idea that that space is very vast and mysterious, but there's also a lot of activity in it, and it sort of draws you into the game.
And a lot of these principles that we've set ourselves, like, the discoverability should be good and it should be easy to just learn by doing, we've started using some of those in the recent projects that we've done, like the ISIS ship identification system, and we're using that in the industry revamp that we're working on. So even with the things that we are doing that are not specifically for new players, we're using these methods there as well, so that both veterans and new players can just get the best experience from these features.
And one just final note to that, before long, a lot of the NPE work will start making kind of enough progress to get to like dev blog and forum feedback stages, and we'll really want a lot of help. I know you guys generally take care of new players better than we do, and so as much help as we can get will be really good. Go back over here.
All right.
Some questions from Neonovis on your module rebalancing. Are you intending to keep them as a progression, or are you going to make each tier of the module actually useful? For for some of them, the Tech 2 variant is notably inferior to the Meta 4. Are you going to keep that, or are you going to make it so each thing has its own note, like Asiotropics shields versus the large regoliths?
That is an excellent question, and the answer is that we are moving towards, we're basically building the plan to make every module have very useful roles in a similar way that we approach chips. We've got what we call the module task force working in the office actually right now, a group of designers that are all coming together and working on that plan. We're actually going to be presenting some of it in like 2 hours in the chip and module balancing presentation in this room, where I'm going to have a couple of obviously made by me, not by somebody who's good at making them, charts that show the way we're envisioning them with some examples. And you're going to start to see those changes bit by bit hitting TQ over the next couple releases. So yes, we are definitely working towards that. There's a lot, obviously, that's not good. There's a lot of cases where there's inconsistency. Tech 2 modules that just aren't good because of the fact that the Meta 4 replaces them. Metas 1s and 2s and 3s that are cheaper than Tech 1 because they're just absolutely useless except for invention modifiers. And so we want to make sure that all of them have a good reason to use them. And that's something that we're going to be working towards. And we'll tell you a bit more about that at that presentation.
I think you make excellent charts, actually.
So thank you.
Go back with it.
Yeah. Hello. This is more of a design question. Was always nagged about to me about the emergence in the game, where the guns have had a great design upgrade, where they actually unfold and stuff like that. It's always nagged at me that your drones just appear outside of the ships, but you have these cool, what they call trailers, where they actually exit one side of your ship, or your drone bay. And would you think that we implemented that when you look at your own ship, you only see your own drones coming off your own ship, so it wouldn't cause lag or anything?
Yep. It doesn't just bug you, it bugs us, and especially the art guys a lot as well. I think I'm probably not the only person that would like rewind and watch again and rewind and watch again that one part of the Rubicon trailer where the sentries go flying out of the Stratosphere. It's like, ooh, it's so great. Yeah. That is something that, and we've done it in a bunch of trailers because it looks really cool and it's a great feeling. And I know our art guys are excited about the possibility of doing that. One of the reasons that it hasn't been implemented yet is not every ship has a visible drone bay, but you'll notice as we're adding new ships, as we're revamping old ships, you're getting new drone bays added, like physical spots for them on new ones. I think there's probably some more details you'd be able to get from the art guys at their panel.
Yeah, like on the Apocalypse.
Yep.
Yeah, I saw.
That's something that I know they keep in mind whenever they redesign ships with that in kind of a future mind. I don't think it's going to be right away soon, but asking them at the art panel might be the best bet for that.
Well, that's nice to know at least. Thank you.
All right, question to CCP Fassi. Can you iterate on the reason behind wanting to increase the jump fuel cost on capital ships?
All right, so what was the time and who had that one bet in the pool? All right, so for anyone that's not familiar with it, we just announced our intention a couple days ago to increase the fuel use of all jump drives and jump bridges and jump portals in the game by 50%. And there's a couple reasons for it, and we went through a little bit in that original post about them. It's something where we realized we had an opportunity to make a change that would do a couple of positive effects from our point of view in one. One is they would help stimulate the isotope market as a whole. We do predict that the demand for isotopes in general will go down a bit from other sources. And we want to make sure that that segment of the community that ice mines as a profession, that there's good kind of stable prices or stable-ish prices for them. We also see it as an opportunity to add a bit of cost to power projection. It's not something that's going to prevent people from jumping around, but at the very least, it's making them have to make that decision a little bit more carefully if you're just going to wantonly throw a supercarrier onto somebody's like roaming fleet and not kill them at all, and they'll just run away. It also is something that provides some more interesting choices of where you're going to do manufacturing, in that transport costs are one of the decisions that people should have to make. And at the moment, transport costs are, compared to the cost of goods, very low in EVE. I think it's fine for them to be fairly low, but at the moment, they're probably a little bit too low for that to be a very meaningful decision.
Personally, I think the power the people that use that power projection, as you call it, will just ignore the fuel prices completely. But how do you say it? The people that use it as an industrial method will get affected quite a lot, because transporting stuff at least to 0-0 costs quite a lot for the jumpings.
It definitely can. It's a very low cost compared to the cost of the goods generally, but yeah, the cost does add up. I think it's something that no one's going to be able to completely ignore the difference. It's not something that just everyone shrugs off. What it comes down to is what percentage of your budget is in jump fuel right now. And I know that that it will increase the cost for the big groups that are doing a lot of power projection with it, because that is a very big ongoing cost when you're jumping large fleets of capitals around very regularly. It's something we're going to be continuing to take feedback on it, both like as we kind of go through the next couple of weeks, and then also if we release it onto TQ, we're going to also be watching very carefully the results of what happens and making sure that we're fine-tuning everything.
Yeah, personally, I don't think that people that uses that power projection will actually stop because of the extra fuel. So it basically negates the whole reason for doing it.
It's not just the only reason, like I said. But yeah, I don't think it's going to stop anybody, but it provides a set of decisions of how much to do it.
We got to keep moving.
Mm-hmm. I know for a fact that one of the groups that does a lot of power projection asked their renters to get into the thread and talk about it, so I know they're at least somewhat concerned, and I know them, so.
All right, thank you. Take the other side again.
When will Lamar be the new meta? No, actually, what I was going to ask was, do you have any themes that you use for the various races when you are designing and balancing the ships? And if so, what are they?
Like a special set of underwear or something like?
No, like Minotaur tends to be fast and not have a lot of hit points, that kind of thing. And Amar's slow and tanky and shoots lasers everywhere. But obviously those have changed over time. And I was just wondering if you had any sort of themes that you use when you're doing the game design for the races and what they might be.
Yep. I mean, I can answer this again too. Yeah, I think it's, we definitely do. And you're right, it does shift a bit over time. Like, for instance, we've very intentionally over the past couple years expanded the drone theme of the MR race to make that a strong secondary part of their weapon systems. And it's something that we do have for all of them. So both on speed and agility. So for instance, you'll see the difference between an average Galente ship and an average Minotaur ship. The Minotaur one will have higher speed. The Galente one, though, will have lower mass, which gives it better agility and better benefits from micro-warp drives and afterburners. You get Amar and Caldari ships tend to project to longer ranges usually compared to shorter range, active tanking versus passive tanking. There's a lot of different factors that we keep in mind and try to make sure that every ship feels right for the race. But they also have, like, they're not set in stone. Like, we give ourselves the ability to make decisions that's going to get us the best, most interesting ships rather than kind of stay lockstep into it. As for when the Amar meta is happening, I mean, Navy APOCs are pretty awesome.
We did do a short summary for all the races when we did the ISIS, where we kind of explained very, very high level to those that were new to the game to kind of just understand what the differences were. So that's when you're in the ISIS and you're kind of hovering over the faction icons, you can see, you know, what each faction stands for, if you will.
Yeah, and one thing we discovered when doing that is that it is even, there's exceptions everywhere pretty much. And we're fine with that. We just want to make sure that when there are exceptions, they're for a good reason. And that when we don't have one, we try to support those themes as much as possible.
All right. Thanks.
Hi, I have a couple of questions. The first one is, back in the oldie days when I started, the tutorials had the voiceover the Aurora had, but they don't have it anymore. Is there a reason why you removed it?
Nobody was willing to read all the text. It's too long.
What it actually comes down to. I'm a very slow reader, so it was actually helpful to have the text read out.
What it comes down to really is that voiceover tutorials are great. They're really effective. We love having them. As soon as you change something, you have to throw the voice out and record it again and pay for an actor and get the actor in and get them set up and do the stuff. And like, we don't have the capability to do that locally. And sorry. Well, yeah, No, make your Terbium do it. It'll be much better.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, like, and the thing, as you've seen, there's a thing we've gone back and forth on because we keep saying, oh, hey, it would be great if we had voice, and then we do voice, and we realize, oh, if we change how something works, now we have one paging tutorial with no voice, and that's almost worse than having no voice at all because you have this up, is it in, is it out, what's going on, we don't know. So right now we don't have any because, again, it's just as soon as we change anything in the game that's got a tutorial, it breaks everything. In the long run, if we can get to the point where text-to-speech is actually like at the level that we can do that with, like with some kind of text-to-speech system, then I'm sure we will totally be looking into doing that very hard because that will be great. But in the meantime, it just the load of constantly having to update the voice every time we change anything in the game just makes it kind of non-viable over the long run.
We did investigate that a little bit. We went to the University of Iceland, talked to a professor there that had been researching these text-to-voice methods, and he had like the latest technology possible, and it still sounded like the robot voice of the first Apple. So we couldn't really use that for now, but who knows? Maybe in 5 years or so.
It's actually. Go ahead.
I'll just read it, so the game will be even harder to understand.
It's actually pretty hard even just to maintain the text in the tutorial. I mean, something that's difficult about the way the tutorial is set up currently is that whenever we do work anywhere else, so like all this industry work right now means we have to go back and try to get all the text and all the pieces of the missions up to date. And that's actually pretty hard even just for the text in the tutorial, let alone all the voice stuff.
It also tends to lower our ability to, the speed at which we can iterate. I mean, if we get something recorded, we have to have all the text done by a certain time, go get it recorded, get it back, and it means we have to stop changing things. Versus, being able to just quickly make small changes right up until we release, shortly before, so localization doesn't kill us, but yeah.
Another question I also have is a unique question you have never heard before. The optional high resolution texture. Is there any ETA on that? From what I know from the live stream, it has been asked the last 100 Fanfest you hold.
I believe there's an art panel at some time.
Yeah, they're going to love that question for sure. Yeah, we would love that. We love that. We want that as well.
Okay, thanks. Over there.
Yes. Back in Retribution, you made some very good changes to the bounty hunting system. And as great as those changes were from Retribution, there are still quite a number of issues that irk me as a bounty hunter and a kill right assassin. One, the UI for giving out a kill right to me, for example, the person puts in the name and then they see this button right next to the name field that says make available, which they don't understand makes that kill right available to everyone, allowing the person to have his buddies kill him and remove the kill right with the newbie ship. Are there any changes incoming for the bounty hunting profession?
It's not something that's being worked on right now or in the near future. When we did that feature, as almost always when we're doing features, we end up with a design that is quite a bit larger and more involved than what we can actually deliver. And we had several designs for exactly what you're talking about to give players more control over whom they give kill rights to and so on. And this was something that we wanted to do. We wanted to give players the option to set it by standing, to give it to corp, to even give it to individual players, which would basically make it a kill contract in a sense. And several similar things like for player-owned custom offices also. But it's just we didn't have time to implement them, and then we got put on something else, and that's just the nature of EVE development. But hopefully we can get back to it at some time.
We could use a marketplace, sort of like the mercenary marketplace, where you could make kill rights available. It's a lot easier than me having to research everyone who's been killed in the system and contact them personally to see if they'll give me their kill right. Yes,
the infamous mercenary marketplace, which sort of got picked up and used a lot in as a buzzword, and we didn't really deliver a mercenary marketplace in the end, but we absolutely have plans for the mercenary marketplace to do all of these things that you're describing and more, and hopefully, you know, we can implement it fully at some point.
Hey, I noticed on your list you had the camera at the end. Sometimes when I'm playing EVE, I've got this mental image of the Capsuleer in his pod with swivel eyes, and they sort of just spinning around in their sockets. And sometimes when I'm introducing a new player into the game, you kind of see the same thing when they're playing the game, and they don't know where to look, and sometimes when their eye will just go back into their socket. And I don't know, what are you doing about that? Because I do know it's been the same way for so many years. I know you've made a couple of changes recently, but those are my question really.
Yeah, I think the camera it's not something that, this is not a pun, gets a lot of focus all the time. But
no, I don't realise.
It's something we do have an ongoing, we keep in mind on an ongoing basis, because it is very, very important to the in-space experience. And there are a few things we would like to improve, and I think there's also some aspects where we would like to actually maybe have an even more in-depth revamp of how the camera works and how it immerses you in the EVE universe and gives the impression of the vastness of space, which Scarpia's talked about. It's always in the background, that's for sure.
I think the main thing too that's sort of, we've been not directly working on the camera functionality, but thinking a lot about trying to make sure people have a good idea of what they're looking at or where they should be looking. I mean, stuff like adding the better hints to the tutorial, I know was driven by that, people not knowing what they should be looking at during the tutorial. So adding, these pointers that give you an idea of where you should be focused, to things like the system scanner, which, make the scene more kind of poppy so that you have an idea of what might be interesting in it. And I don't think that's all of it. I mean, as Delegate Zero is saying, looking at the camera as a whole might be a good idea, but I think in general we're thinking more about where people's attention should be and trying to lead them as much as possible towards things that are actually useful.
Yeah, sometimes I think just maybe even for more experienced players, sometimes it can get overwhelming, and it's just pushing it in the direction it needs to go. And sometimes you do get this whole swivel effect.
We tried setting tracking camera to default, and that didn't go so well.
I did. But it's a bit extreme sometimes.
Yeah,
you see what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, it's cool.
Thanks.
Yep.
Hello. Hi from Evolution, and thank you for making the game fun for over 11 years. I have a similar question to what was just asked. A lot of us came to EVE from Homeworld, and in terms of orienting yourself in space and being able to tell where the heck your ship is, and being able to zoom out and still know where the heck you are and which way you're going, Homeworld still has you beat even 11 years later. Would you mind helping us out a little bit in terms of when we zoom out, letting us know where the ship is, and even with the tactical overlay up, perhaps which direction we're pointing in? It would be really nice to be able to do that in places like VTech are, where things perhaps should be zoomed out a little bit so you can see what the crap's going on.
That is a topic that we're aware of that we need to actually work on. It's like tentatively on our roadmap. We're no commitment on when that will actually happen, but it's something that we need to discuss.
Yeah, and I know like tactical overlay rework is something that we do talk about a lot. I think that would be really beneficial. And there actually, I mean, nobody's ever seen these, but there was kind of a side project I know people were working on, getting like vectors in space to kind of give some indication of where your ship was moving and how fast it was moving. And play testing for it didn't go great, and it kind of felt weird, and so it got scrapped. But it might come back in another version, and it's definitely something that I agree we need to think about.
Yeah, there's a lot of research available for this kind of stuff. I mean, we've even had a roundtable here at Fanfest 2 years ago where we did these kind of brainstorms with players about just situational awareness and how to kind of improve information in space about what you're doing to others and what others are doing to you, and how fast you're traveling, and how your velocity is and all that stuff. And there was a lot of work that went into some prototypes, and I would say that none of that is lost work. It's just things that we need to prioritize and revisit when we find the right opportunity. So we're definitely thinking about that a lot.
Yeah, this is precisely the type of feature that as soon as someone has a good idea about, we should fire up like a really tight prototype team and see if it actually pans out.
Well, really, you have all this work sunk into the ship models and the skins and everything that we're talking about from just a goodies, eye candy standpoint. And I introduce someone to EVE and they say, where the heck am I? What am I looking at? Where is my ship? If it's so awesome, how come it's not dominating the screen more often? If you could, if you will, when you zoom out, perhaps not necessarily have vectors, which is very mathematic and definitely no eye candy, just a not necessarily as detailed, but perhaps a bare bones model of the ship that takes on an outsize, overall ratio, if you will, so that when you zoom out, you see some sort of cartoony shape of your ship. I mean, obviously, this is a terrible idea, but still something like that, where if you zoom out, you perhaps don't see the amount of eye candy if you're eyeballing the thing closely, but at the very least, it's an abstract form that's pointing in the general direction that you're also traveling.
Yeah, that would be cool. I mean, there is this like constant
we'll prototype it. or something.
There is this like constant tension between the fact that, as you say, we have these lovely models and this lovely high-res art and all this stuff, and Eve is kind of, from a combat point of view, designed optimally, played at quite long range, at quite high zooms essentially. And we've experimented with things like, capping the camera zoom so that you're always close to your ship and it just becomes unplayable, because you need to have that situational awareness of what's on the grid. So there is this constant tension that we're always discussing about, like, how do we make the game playable versus how do we make it look good, and how we leverage this amazing art we have and make sure people see the art, but also not take control away from the player and also not limit their gameplay. So it's definitely like a thing that we talk about quite a lot.
Yeah, and actually, going back to something Scarpy was saying, we do quite a bit of prototyping, and sometimes we put the prototypes to one side, and sometimes later on we'll have an idea and we'll pull them back in, and there's a few examples of that ongoing at the moment, and I think there's an increasing sense in the game department, I would think, that prototyping is a big part of what we do, and any ideas that people have, we can feed those into some of our prototyping work that we get to do on the side, so the main projects that we're doing for the upcoming releases, etc.
All right, we're back at the other side here.
Okay, my question is more high level. In the CSM notes, you talked about maybe trying to find a way to tie missions and some other more disconnected parts of gameplay, like factional warfare and stuff, to like the overall world of the game and make it more connected to other parts. Can you talk about the philosophy or the direction that you are thinking about going with that?
Okay, so that's definitely something we've been thinking a lot about. In our current state of affairs internally, not like people-wise, but technology-wise, we just don't have that ability right now. I mean, it takes like 3 days to make one NPC that flies around in space. We can't make new NPC corporations. There's a lot of problems there, and something that we didn't make very clear in the CSM notes, I don't think, is that we have formed a new team internally that is specifically looking at content tools and making them. And part of that work is what do we want content in Eve to be? And when I say content, I don't just mean the NPCs flying around in space. I mean the NPC corporations, the modules, like all of this stuff in the game. How do we make it? And if we're looking at that, we can look at, okay, how do we make it to do what it does now, or how do we make it to do what we want it to do? So when you talk about, just things being more dynamic in the world, we agree 100% internally. I mean, we love the fact that the EVE universe is so player-driven, and we don't want to go through and continuously update NPC corporations if something changes. That's just stuff that should happen, right? So, anyways, some of it is we agree and we're working on it.
Well, I guess I'm not really...
I'd like to add to it, which might actually answer your question. So what Foxford was explaining was the actual, what you actually do in a mission, which is sort of one of the parts of the whole mission system. Another part is just the mission system itself. How do you get missions? The whole agents and standing system, all that stuff. And then finally, it's the whole UI stuff of it. How do you know what missions you're on? How do you know what to do? And all those things. And the content tool that Foxford was describing is going to tackle the first part of it, which he described. The other two is something that Super Friends might look into. We're sort of right now figuring out exactly what we're going to be working on in the near future, and this is one of the things we have been discussing, and the things we've been discussing there on the UI front, improve the UI, the mission information page, improve the information you get on the screen itself, like basically a more a better quest tracker in a sense. But for the actual mission system, we do have some ideas there. These take this with a huge grain of salt. It's just something that is in very early discussion stages. But something fairly simple we might do there is, for instance, to just have missions have sort of global counters. So every time a mission is completed, a counter goes up. And then we can play around with those counters as much as we want. We can have these counters trigger something new when it reaches some number. We can have counters go against each other. So like there's an Ammar counter going up and there's a Minmatar counter going up, and whichever one is higher at some point, something happens. There's a lot of things we can do there that both would facilitate cooperative and competitive gameplay. But exactly what that would be is still left up for grabs. It could be somewhat linked to what Incursion does, like system-wide effects and stuff like that, but it's still very early discussions.
And then to step back even further and talk about the big, like, philosophical level thing, one of the big challenges that EVE faces as a long-term game is keeping people interested over multiple years. We do a lot of work with, for instance, Scott Rigby Immersive has this model which is based on motivation, which is based around autonomy, relatedness and mastery, and it's the mastery thing in particular that is a constant struggle for an online game that runs over a long period. How do we keep people learning over a long period? It needs variety, it needs the situations to change, and having the game world change in a way that means that you're getting a new challenge every day and something new to beat every day is a really hard thing to do. The way we do it in EVE generally is we rely on other people changing the world to make your world different, so that your world is changing every day because of the players around you. And that's kind of at the very, very high level. Certainly whether I think the stuff in the CSM notes I think might have been me. It was, but the things that we talk about in this kind of regard are this kind of thing, like how can we make it so that your PvE experience or your mission experience or your mine experience or your industry experience relative to this expansion is changing every day because of the players around you, so that you're not just doing the same thing over and over again, and you're also not just fighting some algorithm that we've written where we're changing the world based on some arbitrary math we've come up with, but rather saying, hey, you know, this mission is changing today, or the situation you're doing your missions in has changed today because of those guys over there. And you can either suck it up and deal with it, or you can go talk to them, or you can go kill them, or you can go and do whatever you like, but there's something that other players are doing that's affecting your gameplay, and there's things that you are doing conversely affecting other people's gameplay, so they may come to you and say, stop doing missions here, you're wrecking my industry, and you're like, no. What are you going to do about it? And then what are you going to do about it? And it's that, at the very high level, that's the kind of thinking I think that's driving that kind of conversation about having stuff like missions affecting other areas of the game and vice versa. Is trying to ensure that we're constantly creating new challenges for players to overcome. We're driving that by other players rather than by some abstract math.
Just sort of on the same line, is there, like right now in factional warfare, you can fight for the Caldari for 2 weeks and then, you know, switch to the Minmatar when that tends to be more to your benefit. Is there more openness to making longer term consequences for things, or is that still you don't want to lock people out of content just because they, just as a gameplay issue?
I think that's like a balancing act that we approach on a case-by-case basis. What feels right here, what feels right there. I don't know if anyone else has anything they want to say about that.
Yeah, I think it's, we're not against making long-term consequences, but we want to make sure that we're communicating them clearly. One of the issues we've had, of course, with the standing system, which in some ways was intended, I think, to provide some of those consequences, is that it's very unclear what's happening to your standings and what the results are of that. So that would be the kind of thing we would need to improve before we start relying on that kind of thing more. We need to make sure that people know what they're getting into and what the results of their actions are going to be. And that they know that, hey, look, if you take this mission, suddenly the guys on the other side of the galaxy are going to shoot you if you come visit.
Okay, thanks.
So we're going to have to take one question on each side more, maybe two. Let's just see how fast they are, because we're running out of time. But okay, go ahead.
Hey, as a wormhole player, is there any news on a POS revamp?
Yep.
Next question.
I mean, so we're always making changes to Starbases, improving them. There's a number of changes coming in the upcoming release that we've already talked a bit about. The way that you handle some of the things like compression in them. And there's a, actually I'm just going to go ahead and say it because we're going to talk about it the roundtables for wormholes anyways too, but one of the things, the quality of life things we're improving, that especially wormholers and the wormhole CSM guys have been letting us know that is really important to you, is the extra large ship maintenance arrays that can store a bunch of ships, but at the moment too big to be able to prevent access from outside. We're fixing that in the summer expansion. So that is going to now be much more usable for if you need access control with shield passwords for wormholers. So we're hoping that that'll at least help a bit. As for the longer term stuff, we're still working towards it. There'll be...
And you should come to the keynote.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I have a question about the meta sorting, if you're going to implement that soon, or if that takes a decade to figure out.
So by meta sorting, you mean like module stuff?
Yeah, module stuff, right.
Yep.
Like if you see in variations for the market tab, you always have it by alphabetically, so you can't see which is more meta by that.
Switch it to a list view. You can right-click a column header and show meta level. It doesn't help on the market.
It doesn't help on the market. It doesn't help.
There's a lot of places we'd like to display it better, yeah. One of the things, like I mentioned, the module task force that we've put together, one of the things that we've already been talking quite a bit about is how we display the difference between modules, these concepts, things like meta levels, and how can we improve, especially the compare tool, which is somewhat functional, but is hidden away and a lot of people don't even know it exists. And also there's a lot of room to improve it. And yes, we definitely want to be improving these as we go, both improving the balance between modules and also how we actually communicate that.
Yeah, also, just one point about the pause thingy is that when you're inside the pause and someone is using it and you click manage, you can only see a very delayed shield level of the pause.
We are aware.
Yeah.
Okay, over here.
So my question is related to trading. Right now it's really great gameplay to figure out trade routes and all that, but then you have to maintain it all the time. So for example, in GDA you have to update your order multiple times a day. So are there any plans to do something about the order system and make it less tedious to maintain? For example,
want us to let you bot it?
No. No, I mean, like creating better tools and especially kind of an easier to use interface for it. It's definitely something we'd like to do, but it's not something that we have anything to announce at this time, unfortunately.
Yeah, we have a long-term desire to revisit the market and make it more good. That would be cool, but yeah, not immediately.
Okay, thanks.
The question is about the API. Have you guys any plans of expanding your API or maybe making some app which allow to tie some in-game activities to the tablets or mobile phones, whatever?
I think it's, yeah, I have a presentation at 3 o'clock downstairs. Come to that. I think it's called third-party tools or third-party developer tools update or something like that.
Thanks.
Come to that, yeah.
All right, we can take one on either side more, and then we're done. We're here.
Hi. So last year, you guys debuted the Discovery Scanner and the scanner overlay and all that stuff. A lot of people don't think it's particularly useful if they're not doing exploration. I think it's cool, but the first thing that I saw when I saw it was that this is the tool that, when iterated upon, can solve the whole local D-scan intelligence gathering. So any iterations on the Discovery Scanner, particularly as it might relate to the D-scanner?
Yes.
Yes. There's quite a bit that we have kind of lined up at an early level design and stuff that we're hoping to be able to get implemented sometime in the near-ish future. Some of the stuff that we're talking about very heavily is things like, for the first step, just pulling more into it and giving you more ability to filter. So allow you to do For instance, bookmarks viewable in the Discovery Scanner is something we really want to do and that we're working towards. Be able to see missions, be able to see more of what's out there, and then be able to customize what you're seeing. And then from there, we can build upon it to, we also have designs for how we'd like to tie the directional scanner in and things like that. And there's a lot of excitement internally to try to get more done there, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was very much conceived to be a what is going on in space around me tool, and what we've got is the first step for that, but we want to have, like, you know, you undock, like, what can I do? We want to have as much as possible, you know, with filters and stuff, like Fuzzy says, like, here are things you can do in this system. Cool.
And there's going to be a roundtable about intelligence gathering where we'll take a lot of feedback on that kind of stuff at some point. It's in the schedule. I don't know the time.
Just to quickly note also that there is more work also needed there to add more depth to the system. So we made this system more accessible, but we also need to add a bit more depth, but that sort of connects into having better content tools. But hopefully that will happen in the future.
All right, I promised one on each side, so I'm going to keep my promise.
Yeah, thank you. I have a question about casual players. We're having a problem that many players, they don't have that much time to spend on EVE, and they still want to be part of the thing, they want to be part of the plot. And when they are spending like 2 evenings a week being on a fleet or something, they don't have all the time to prepare the stuff, because it takes an awful lot of time, I don't have to tell you, and this ends up that there is a very few persons who have to prepare everything. They get to bring all the stuff there and make all the decisions and everything, and that's an awful lot of work, and I think they need better tools. Like, for example, the fitting tool, there's so much that I would like to see improved. Are you working on sort of doing something there?
Again, I think yes is a good answer. We need to do a lot, I think. I think it has a lot of parts, but that being able to have activities that are accessible to more casual players has so much value. And there's things, like you say, like the fitting tool, there's kind of, you know, half-done stuff that could go a long way for that. Stuff like save fittings was a good step, but we can go further doing, you know, bulk buying and bulk fitting and stuff like that would go.
Bulk selling.
Like there's
tons of loot.
yeah, there's tons of stuff to do there. I also think the star map actually could be a really good way to help with that, to make it more easy to find the kind of activity you want. I think there's a lot of different angles we can come at, but it's definitely something that we want to improve on.
But it's more not the immediate future, but
yeah, I mean, I hope that it's part of a lot of the features we're building. I mean, even the industry stuff is meant to be smoother and faster and just take less of that really intense, hardcore time investment to get something out of. And I think that hopefully is part of all of the feature designs we're doing.
It's also like it's both the user experience, but it's also our job to actually provide you with a world that is where your actions actually have more impact, and you can more obviously see that you're part of the world. And like, and that comes to sort of what Phosphor was talking about, where like we're building better authoring tools for us to author the world in a way we want it. Of course, we'll have to meet like a certain feature parity, so we actually can maintain and build some of the stuff that we already have. But it's also the stuff that's in EVE is the best stuff we've been able to build with the tools we have. So we're like actually looking at how we can make a much more sort of responsive and interesting gameplay that you can get into, whether you're like solo or in a group. Okay. Not a very practical answer maybe, but that's sort of.
And with that, we're done. Thank you everybody very much for coming, and we'll see you on some other presentations and roundtables throughout the 3 days. Thank you.